Throughout history, unorthodox sects, demonic sects, and orthodox sects, righteous sects have grown and developed continuously. However, one day, the righteous sects could no longer tolerate the situation and decided to join forces to attack the dwelling of the demonic sects. The leader of the demonic sects asked the righteous sects why, since the demonic sects' establishment, they had never done anything that defied the heavens or violated moral principles, yet they were being hunted down so ruthlessly. The righteous sects claimed that the demonic sects had killed their messenger. The demonic sect leader defended himself, stating that the messenger had insulted his disciples, leaving him no choice but to act. The righteous sects refused to believe this and launched an all-out attack. Despite the demonic sect leader proclaiming that he feared no one, he was ultimately defeated and turned into a fish. 13 years later, the once thriving stronghold of the demonic sects was now in ruins. However, a young boy named Wu Renji, the son of the demonic sect leader, came to this desolate place. Renji had just returned with groceries, and the demonic sect leader was deeply worried, fearing his son might accidentally reveal their true identities. Renji, however, believed that the righteous sect warriors in the valley were not as evil as his father described because he saw them helping the elderly and children. Nevertheless, his father reminded him that if they ever discovered his identity as part of the demonic sect, they would show no mercy. Indeed, many of the surviving members of the demonic sect had been found and beaten severely. Thanks to the leader's prudence, they had chosen to reside in their old hideout, successfully evading the righteous sect's pursuit. Wanting to help his son live a better life and restore the sect's reputation, the leader came up with a plan to rehabilitate their image. He decided that Renji must earn the Certificate of Virtue issued by the Martial Alliance. Only with this certification could they be recognized as part of the righteous sect and rise from their lowly status. When Renji suggested forging the certificate, his father rejected the idea, explaining that the certificate could only be obtained through study and examinations. The leader had already arranged for Renji to enroll in a nationally renowned school. Despite its prestige, the school had affordable tuition fees and provided food and accommodation, making it possible for Renji to start his studies immediately. Renji was eager to go, but his father insisted on finding him a bodyguard for safety. The bodyguard, Uncle Lee, had a rugged, streetwise appearance. While the leader repeatedly emphasized the importance of keeping their demonic sect background a secret, Uncle Lee's appearance seemed to contradict this advice. Uncle Lee assured Renji that he would protect him well. The leader then began a heartfelt farewell speech, but before he could finish, Uncle Lee and Renji left hastily. As Renji departed, the leader reminded him once again to never reveal his true identity and to study hard to earn the Certificate of Virtue. Thus, Renji embarked on a new journey. What awaited him in the future? The Library of Virtue, located at the foot of the mountain, was an institution with a history of over 100 years. Originally established by the Martial Alliance to train talents and enhance martial skills to combat the demonic sect, the library now served as a training ground for righteous sect heroes. To enroll in this school, one had to possess exceptional talent. Graduates of the school were awarded the Certificate of Virtue by the Martial Alliance, a recognition of their status as righteous individuals. On their way to the school, Uncle Lee insisted that Renji carry him, claiming it was part of his training to build stamina for the school's entrance exams. Upon arriving at the school gate, they were astonished to see a long line of applicants. Joining the queue, they soon heard an announcement that everyone would be searched to prevent demonic sect disciples from infiltrating the school. Anyone found to be a member of the demonic sect would be executed on the spot. As the announcement ended, a man was thrown out of the line. A fierce-looking individual named Kang, a senior guard at the school, stepped forward. Uncle Lee identified Kang and explained to Renji that he was one of the school's high-ranking enforcers. Kang commented that the man was wearing clothes with the word demon boldly written across his chest and claimed not to be part of the demonic sect, which was clearly a lie. Kang dismissed the excuse and struck the man down, ordering his immediate execution. Witnessing this, Renji realized the grim fate awaiting any discovered demonic sect member. Kiang declared that as long as he was there, no member of the demonic sect would ever infiltrate the school. Uncle Lee, however, remained unconcerned, confidently stating that neither he nor Renji bore any visible markings associating them with the demonic sect. Immediately after, several people announced that the son of the demonic sect leader had reappeared, wearing an outfit very similar to the one Renji was wearing. Anyone dressed similarly was immediately kicked out, leaving Renji no choice but to sit down and lower his head in shame. Kiang noticed Renji, forcing Uncle Lee to quickly change his appearance. Spinning Renji around a few times, Uncle Lee transformed him into a girl so stunning that everyone who saw him was mesmerized. Even the guards couldn't help but have nosebleeds, and Kiang, blushing furiously, accused Renji of dressing too provocatively. He ordered Renji to enter quickly to avoid distracting others. Renji successfully blended in, while Uncle Lee also disguised himself to follow. Declaring himself a genius at disguises, Uncle Lee faced Renji's disapproval for turning him into a girl. Uncle Lee explained that since the identity of the demonic sect leader's son was already exposed, disguising Renji as a girl would save him from much trouble in the future. Renji complained about the outfit being too revealing, but Uncle Lee insisted that Renji looked adorable, so it didn't matter. Suddenly, a blade flew toward them, and a girl appeared, accusing Uncle Lee of being from the demonic sect. This girl, named Mingju, despised men. She was the daughter of the Martial Alliance leader, highly intelligent, and served as the class discipline officer. Renji thought this was the end for him, but Mingju mistook Uncle Lee for a demonic sect member bullying a weak girl Renji. Realizing the misunderstanding, Uncle Lee revealed his face and handed Renji over to her. Uncle Lee then questioned how Mingju had seen through his disguise. Mingju ridiculed him, saying that a burly man wearing women's clothing was a shameless giveaway. Uncle Lee proudly claimed his disguise skills were not the problem, his rugged looks were. The two then engaged in combat, their weapons clashing fiercely. Despite her skill, Mingju struggled to defeat Uncle Lee, who was far from weak, even against someone who hadn't graduated yet. Forced to use her full strength, Mingju was about to strike when a young man suddenly descended from the sky. Taking advantage of the ensuing chaos, Uncle Lee escaped, promising to secretly watch over and protect Renji so he could focus on his studies. Mingju scolded the young man for allowing the demonic sect member to escape, but he argued that he had just saved the two girls. Renji thanked him, but the young man dismissed it, saying his family had always taught him to fight evil. It was simply his duty. However, Mingju was upset because she had intended to capture the demonic sect member, but the young man had let him slip away. He insisted that he deliberately came to rescue the two weak girls, which only angered Mingju further. She resented being called weak, especially since he had never beaten her in combat. As Renji tried to slip away, Mingju grabbed his hand and dragged him along. The young man suddenly asked them if they had any toilet paper, admitting he had come to find a bathroom. Renji gave him a piece of silk fabric to use temporarily, and the young man promised to wash and return it. He asked Renji's name to befriend him, but had to run off before Renji could answer, unable to hold it any longer. Mingju grumbled that this was why she hated men. They were arrogant, crude, and clumsy. Hugging Renji, she declared that girls were the best, so cute and lovable. The two introduced themselves, and Mingju assured Renji that if he ever had trouble, he could come to her for help. Renji, however, was anxious to return to his male form to avoid spending years at the school dressed as a girl. Mingju, oblivious to his discomfort, insisted on taking him on a school tour. During the tour, Mingju asked Renji how much he knew about the demonic sect. Nervously, Renji denied any connection to them. Mingju then pulled out a picture of Renji, making it clear that his true identity had been partially exposed. She read out information about the son of the demonic sect leader, mentioning that he traveled with an attendant named Lee, known for his disguise skills. However, she still didn't know the son's name. Renji, sweating profusely, feared that Mingju was getting too close to the truth. Assuming she had frightened him, Mingju decided to protect Renji and take care of him from now on. When Renji asked what she would do if she found the demonic sect leader's son, she coldly declared that she would eliminate him. Terrified, Renji vowed to keep his identity hidden at all costs. Mingju promised to look after him and escorted him to the enrollment ceremony. When Mingju escorted Renji to the location, she left to prepare for the ceremony. Renji thought he would soon be able to make friends here. Mingju reappeared to welcome everyone to the school. Then, the headmaster stepped out to give a speech, but he spoke so slowly that it was as if he were mimicking the sloth from the movie Zootopia. His pace was agonizingly slow. He would finish one sentence while everyone had already dozed off. Mingju, not wanting to waste the auspicious timing, urged the headmaster to speed up. At that, the headmaster asked everyone to shout out the school's motto. The crowd roared, "Eradicate the demonic sect, break their bones and grind them into ashes. If you encounter anyone from the demonic sect, fight to the death and show no mercy." Renji began to deeply understand his father's warnings. He considered using this opportunity to sneak away, but Kyang had already been assigned to guard the entrance. Panicked, Renji retreated into the crowd. As fear consumed him, Mingju and the headmaster began hoisting the school flag. To Renji's shock, the flag depicted a straw effigy modeled after him. Mingju then shot a flaming arrow, setting the effigy ablaze. The crowd cheered wildly as the head of the straw figure was launched into the air and exploded like fireworks. A spherical object then descended from the sky, and everyone recognized it as the Lucky Gift Orb. Chaos erupted as people scrambled to claim it, but amidst the commotion, Renji spotted an escape route and tried to flee. Just as Renji dashed toward the exit, the orb inexplicably fell into his hands, catapulting him straight onto the stage. Mingju seized the opportunity to ask Renji to introduce himself to everyone. Renji, realizing his disguise was on the verge of being exposed, felt trapped. As the orb's recipient, Renji was honored with a special gift from the headmaster. He was asked to introduce his name and sect affiliation. Renji stated his name and nervously explained that he did not belong to any sect. Some were skeptical, but the headmaster reassured them that anyone who wasn't from the demonic sect was welcome to join the school. Renji received a wooden statue crafted by a famous artisan as his prize, along with the promise of gaining the strength of the headmaster's 10 years of cultivation. The headmaster extended his hand, preparing to transfer his inner power to Renji. Alarmed that the headmaster might sense his demonic aura, Renji repeatedly declined, causing everyone to think he was being pretentious. Despite his protests, the crowd interpreted his refusal as a noble decision to cultivate on his own. The headmaster, unwilling to back down, eventually unleashed his energy onto Renji, who immediately felt lighter and more powerful. Mingju explained that the headmaster was the type of person who always followed through once he had made up his mind. However, Renji quickly noticed that the padding Uncle Lee had placed on his chest to enhance his disguise had fallen off during the transfer of energy. The crowd froze in shock. Renji realized his disguise was compromised. Whispers spread. People speculated that he might be a man in disguise and possibly even someone from the demonic sect. Renji regretted coming down from the mountain and enrolling at the school. But just then, Mingju stepped in to defend him. She claimed that Renji was simply flat-chested and not a man. Skeptical, the crowd demanded proof. To settle the matter, Mingju kissed Renji on the cheek, declaring that she suffered from androphobia, a fear of men, and would have felt discomfort if Renji were male. Since she felt nothing unusual, she concluded that Renji was indeed a girl. This declaration allowed Renji to escape suspicion, but he was left in shock, lamenting the loss of his first kiss. Mingju pressed him to admit if he was hiding anything else, asserting that since she had sacrificed her first kiss for him, he owed her complete honesty. Renji had no choice but to keep quiet. Mingju decided to vent her frustration by harassing some of the male students nearby. Afterward, she took Renji to the class placement test. The test was designed to evaluate individual abilities, with students being placed into different classes based on their performance. Those who failed would be expelled. Kiang appeared, demanding silence from the crowd. He announced himself as the examiner for the placement test. Calling names in order, he started with Mingzhu. She stepped forward confidently, introducing herself. Kiang admired her attitude, encouraging others to follow her example. Renji was puzzled about Mingzhu being a new student as well, but she explained that she had grown up here and was only now officially enrolling. After hearing Renji's introduction, Kiang became irritated, as Renji didn't belong to any sect but was still allowed to study here. Kiang decided to make things difficult and force Renji out. The first test was a running race. Everyone was asked to complete 50 laps before the incense burned out. However, Renji was forced to run 100 laps. He reluctantly began running and somehow managed to complete all 100 laps quickly, earning Mingzhu's approval. Because of this, Kiang couldn't argue, as everyone believed that Renji's speed was a result of the 10 years of internal energy he received from the principal. In the second round, Kiang instructed them to throw daggers, and at least one must hit the bullseye. The first person's daggers missed, but they were still passed. The second person, confident in his sect's specialty of dagger throwing, decided to cover his eyes as a challenge. However, his aim was off, and all 3 daggers flew straight at Kiang, who was furious and punched the young man. Then it was Renji's turn. He threw all 3 daggers simultaneously, and they all hit the bullseye, to everyone's surprise. However, Kiang declared that he didn't acknowledge Renji's result and still marked him as failing. Everyone was upset by this, and Mingzhu argued that it was unfair. But Kiang arrogantly insisted that, as the examiner, he had the final say. If he approved someone's performance, they would pass, and even Mingzhu had to comply with him, or she'd be relegated to the average class. Just then, a young boy appeared and protested, saying that he didn't agree with such an assessment. The boy introduced himself as Rhyming, and when Kiang didn't recognize him, Rhyming proudly stated that he was from a famous sect that had been renowned 50 years ago. He climbed onto the stage and boldly challenged Kiang to eliminate him if he was capable. Kiang, sensing Rhyming's audacity, asked him how he performed in the previous 2 tests. It turned out that Rhyming failed both. Kiang scoffed at Rhyming's sect, dismissing it as insignificant. However, Kiang still gave Rhyming a chance in the next strength test. Rhyming demanded an apology from Kiang and insisted that Renji should pass the test if he won. But even as they were about to engage, Rhyming couldn't land a single blow. Kiang became enraged and rushed to strike, beating Rhyming into submission. As he did, he remembered Rhyming's sect and recognized that his father, the White Sword Master, was only famous for his excellent lightness skill, essentially being good at running, but ultimately from an obscure sect. Seeing his father's reputation insulted, Rhyming became furious, but he was powerless to do anything. He began crying and telling Renji about his father's greatness. Renji could somewhat empathize with him and decided to intervene. He stepped forward to block Kiang's strike to protect Rhyming. Kiang, seeing the rats coming to their doom one after another, decided to attack Renji. But Renji continuously protected Rhyming, eventually throwing him toward Mingzhu. Now, Renji could engage in the fight, but he knew he couldn't reveal his martial arts powers, as that would bring disastrous consequences. His father had always warned him to endure when being oppressed, for as the son of the Devil Sect, he possessed immense strength. The elders of the Devil Sect had always been fond of him and secretly taught him internal energy. On the day the Devil Sect was attacked, they even transmitted all their accumulated internal energy to him, making him stronger than even the sect leader. Therefore, Renji knew he must endure, but when his enemy pushed too far, he could strike back. Renji immediately struck Kiang, sending him flying. Kiang instantly recognized that the strike contained the technique of the Devil Sect, but before he could speak, the side effects of the strike caused him to lose consciousness. Everyone praised Renji, thinking his strength came from the principal's teachings. Just then, the disciplinary head appeared to reprimand Kiang for being defeated by a student. It was also rumored that someone had come to hunt for disciples of the devil sect, and this person believed Renji might be one of them. The young man had been injured by the piece of cloth Renji gave him last time as a substitute for toilet paper, and upon inspection, they found a type of poison on the cloth. However, Renji realized that the so-called poison was actually a fish seasoning he had concocted. As a result, Renji became a suspect. The young man, however, believed that Uncle Lee, who had previously kidnapped Renji, was the true culprit. Unexpectedly, the head of the disciplinary committee found Uncle Lee hiding behind some bushes and attacked him, forcing him to reveal himself. Uncle Lee had no choice but to come out and face his old enemy. The two then went elsewhere to engage in battle, leaving Renji behind to hear the results of the class division. Mingju, with her excellent performance in the 3 rounds, was placed in the highest class. Most others were assigned to the middle class, but inexplicably, Renji, despite his good results, was placed in what was considered the worst class, Hell class. The academy was a prestigious and elegant institution, often described with the most beautiful and refined terms. However, there was a place that was the complete opposite of these descriptions, the Hell class. Upon entering, Renji discovered that this class was full of misfits. The first was a young man who looked like a beggar, lying on a desk. Next was a youth who had immersed himself in a cauldron of soup for cultivation. There was also a girl who live-streamed constantly, and then the young man from the devil sect, who had been caught by Kiang earlier outside. This devil sect disciple seemed to be more obedient now after some discipline. There was also a Saiyan boy, the one Renji had given the cloth to for his bathroom needs. Renji was surprised to see that Rhyming was also in this class. Rhyming noticed that the class had very few members and, with no teacher, he decided he would be the one to lead the class and let everyone do as they pleased. However, the teacher of this class soon arrived, none other than the head of the disciplinary committee. He would be the temporary teacher. Rhyming was upset by this interruption but reluctantly accepted. The teacher then read the rules for earning points in this class. Everyone was placed here due to their moral infractions, and they had points deducted. If someone's moral points reached a deduction of 100, they would be expelled. Most students here had only a few dozen points deducted for minor infractions, but Renji had been sent to Hell class because he had attacked a teacher and had his points reduced by 100, leading to his expulsion. Before being expelled, Renji's belongings would be checked. Renji feared that his male attire would be exposed, revealing his true identity as a devil sect disciple, which would lead to his execution. Just then, Saiyan and Rhyming stood up to protect Renji, as both believed Renji hadn't done anything wrong. The teacher, however, warned that he would expel all 3 of them if they resisted. To everyone's surprise, Mingju arrived as well. She too wanted the teacher to leave Renji alone, arguing that Renji had attacked the teacher because he had been forced into the situation. But the teacher was uninterested in excuses. Breaking the rules was still a crime, intentional or not. Mingju then decided to resign from her position in the disciplinary committee, accepting that she would be labeled as someone who opposed the teacher and questioned the rules. As a result, she would be transferred to Hell class with Renji. The teacher, seeing her decision, told her to stay in the class and rot with the others. Renji was surprised by Mingju's decision to go this far for him. He then asked the teacher about a hypothetical situation. If someone was in trouble and another had no choice but to help, even if it violated the rules, would the teacher consider this a bad or good action? The teacher became confused and couldn't determine whether it was good or bad. At that moment, the principal arrived and explained that he had originally planned to assign Kiang to teach this class, but since Kiang was bedridden, he had to arrange for someone else to take over. However, the substitute teacher was also unavailable due to other commitments, and the dormitory would not provide accommodation for this class. Given the various issues, the principal decided to leave things to fate. Since the head of the disciplinary committee was already there, the principal decided to make him the teacher for the class. Everyone was shocked to learn that the head of the disciplinary committee was the best teacher at the academy. The principal, also surprised to see both Renji and Mingju in the class, decided to add some points to both of them to prevent Renji from being expelled. He also decided to have them share a dorm room to avoid further complications in arrangements. However, Renji was not happy about this because now he would have to live with Mingju. He was concerned that during changing clothes, she would notice something unusual, and the chances of his true identity being exposed would be much higher. Unexpectedly, Mingju approached and questioned Renji about why he lied to her. She had discovered that Renji was actually a boy. Renji was baffled as to how she figured it out, but Mingju revealed that she had found his male clothes in his luggage. She didn't expect Renji to surprise her in this way. She then demanded that Renji explain his true purpose for being there. Renji said that he only wanted to live peacefully and obtain a good person certificate, but Mingju didn't believe him. She argued that disciples of the Devil Sect were all liars. Renji then yelled that he was not what she described, and his power surged around him, knocking Mingju's spear away. Mingju demanded that Renji stop, but Renji insisted that she listen to his explanation first. His power caused Mingju's clothes to tear, forcing her to listen to him. After hearing his story, Mingju still had some doubts about Renji's purpose for being there. However, after spending the whole day with him, she noticed that Renji always tried to help others and didn't seem like a bad person. But she was still conflicted, as he was from the Devil Sect, which made things complicated. While she wasn't sure whether to report him to the academy, Renji's pitiful expression made her soften, and she decided to give him a chance. She would personally supervise him to see if he was truly a good person, as everyone deserved a chance. She then reminded Renji that he still had to continue pretending to be a girl because she had kissed him in front of everyone. If his true identity was exposed, she would be embarrassed in front of the whole academy. Renji, thinking that Mingju was the most upright person he had ever met, was taken aback when she added that if he turned out to be truly evil, she would dismember him and send the pieces to his father. Renji quickly realized that Mingju was even scarier than anyone else. Seeing that it was getting late, Mingju told Renji to go to bed. However, Renji suddenly shivered and asked what would happen since there was only one big bed in the room. Realizing that Mingju seemed to be getting angry, Renji decided to sleep on the floor, as he had done at the Devil Sect. But Mingju grabbed her spear and thrust it into the center of the bed. She warned him that if he crossed the line, she would immediately strike him. That night, while sleeping, Mingju kept mumbling and complaining about why Renji had to be a boy. Renji thought that he could relax and stay in the academy now that he had friends. However, Mingju suddenly sleepwalked and threw her spear up into the ceiling, causing it to fall directly where Renji was sleeping. She then pulled Renji over to hug him, preventing him from sleeping. The next morning, Mingju woke up feeling refreshed, while Renji, who hadn't slept all night, looked exhausted. The two later met with Seiyin and his roommate. The roommate was a scholar who had spent the whole night writing a poem for Mingju and Renji. However, his eyesight seemed poor, as he mistook the two friends for wild animals. Renji spoke up, asking him to correct his mistake, but the scholar still bowed to the trees. Renji stepped forward, took the paper, and was confused about what it was. Seiyin realized it was something the roommate had written overnight and complained about how the male dormitory was terrible, with only one bed per person. He asked about Mingju's room, but she punched him for being too nosy. Raiming then appeared, along with his roommate, Xingping. Before they could greet each other, the teacher arrived. He was shocked to find himself, as the head of the disciplinary committee, now teaching a class at the worst class in the academy. However, the situation was already set, so the teacher intended to teach the class with the strictest discipline. He told the students that they should abandon any illusions about a pleasant school life, because there would be none in this class. The first lesson would involve drawing a circle and having two students test their internal martial arts within it. If anyone could push their opponent out of the circle, they would gain points. On the contrary, if they lost, they would have points deducted. Renji was worried that his Devil Sect martial arts would be exposed, but Mingju reassured him, telling him that as long as he fought her, there was no risk of exposure. However, the teacher had anticipated this. He assumed that Renji had already received internal power from the principal, so he would have an advantage over ordinary students. Therefore, the teacher would fight Renji instead. At that moment, Mingju entered the ring to fight the nearsighted scholar. However, her mind was preoccupied with Renji. The teacher was known to despise the devil sect, and if Renji's identity was exposed, the teacher would likely tear him apart. If Renji lost, he would be deducted points and expelled. Lost in thought, Mingju didn't pay attention to the match, but won as the scholar accidentally stepped out of the ring. The next match was between Xingping and the reformed devil sect disciple. Xingping rushed forward and used a technique to smother her opponent, causing him to suffocate and lose. The following match was between Seiyin and a martial artist. Both of them charged at each other, using their hands and feet. After a while, the two of them turned to each other and called themselves brothers, causing the teacher to deduct 5 points from each of them. When they asked why, the teacher explained that they were supposed to be training their internal power, but they had been fighting with martial arts, so they were penalized. The next match was between Rhyming and a stick-wielding youth. Rhyming took out a book to read, but the youth threw a stick at him, knocking him out of the ring, so the winner was clear. Now it was Renji's turn to face the teacher. The teacher stepped into the ring and extended his hand, inviting Renji to enter. Renji reassured Mingju, telling her not to worry because he would be fine. The teacher then made it clear that he wouldn't go easy on Renji just because he was a student. Renji had embarrassed him before, so now the teacher would make sure Renji would be expelled. The teacher suddenly launched an attack from behind. Renji quickly blocked it, but Mingju was worried that Renji had used Devil Sect internal power to block, which would expose him. However, Renji had luckily used the principal's internal power in his hand to block the attack. The teacher was surprised that Renji used his trump card right at the start. Enraged, the teacher decided to teach him a lesson. The teacher then relentlessly attacked, pressing Renji back, but Renji continuously parried his blows. The teacher regretted that Renji would soon face the next attack. The teacher gathered his internal power into a single blow, creating a massive sword-like strike. Renji couldn't dodge it and took the full force of the attack, leaving him badly injured. Renji panicked, realizing that his torn clothes could easily reveal that he was a boy. However, Mingju quickly intervened, claiming that the teacher had intentionally tried to humiliate Renji, preventing him from fighting. Everyone began calling the teacher an old man who played dirty. The teacher then ordered Seiyin to take off his shirt, but Seiyin thought the teacher had inappropriate intentions. The teacher then demonstrated his power to intimidate Seiyin. He said that he had his own teaching methods and Renji should consider himself part of the devil sect because the sect was made up of shameless scoundrels who were willing to play dirty to win. Just hesitating for a second could mean death. Renji was enraged by the teacher's insults about the devil sect. The teacher believed that his actions could never compare to the vile deeds committed by the devil sect. Renji gathered his strength and charged forward, determined to prove that the devil sect was not like what the teacher described. However, Renji still couldn't push the teacher back and was gradually forced out of the circle. The teacher said that Renji would have to leave the academy in this state. But he soon realized that Renji was hiding another internal power. The teacher decided to push Renji to use all his strength, but Renji continued to resist, determined to prove that the devil sect wasn't what people made it out to be. Renji then pushed all the internal energy that the principal had transferred to him into the teacher's body. The teacher was pushed out of the circle, but still tried to strike Renji to push him out. After a while, the teacher stopped, but one of his feet was already outside the circle, while Renji remained standing inside. Suddenly, the teacher's hair fell out, leaving him bald like a monk. It turned out that the principal's internal energy was derived from Shaolin Temple's martial arts. This energy was only compatible with those who had inherently strong physical abilities. If someone without the necessary conditions absorbed it, it would cause harm to their body. However, Renji had indeed won the match, and now he could confidently stay at the academy. He was happily running toward his friends when his clothes suddenly tore into pieces. Renji realized that he had been exposed, but Uncle Lee quickly came to the rescue. He threw down 4 wooden stakes to create dust and wrapped multiple layers of fabric around Renji, creating a makeshift changing room. He swiftly changed Renji into a new outfit and had him present himself to everyone. Mingju was mesmerized by the scene but reminded herself that Renji was a boy. Renji found that Uncle Lee had gone too far this time. No one knew who had changed Renji, but suddenly Uncle Lee appeared, disguised as a woman, and claimed to be the new dormitory manager. He expressed his dissatisfaction with the sight of a young girl struggling with her clothes. He asked Rhyming for the reason, and Rhyming pointed out that it was the teacher's fault. Uncle Lee stormed over and punched the teacher in the face, declaring that as long as he was here, no one would bully the students anymore. Mingju didn't recognize Uncle Lee and thought he was just a very enthusiastic middle-aged woman. Renji was very discouraged, but at least he could be happy that both he and Uncle Lee were safe. Suddenly, the teacher came over and admitted that Renji had won this time. However, he honestly confessed that he hated Renji and advised him not to get caught breaking any rules because the teacher would not stop finding ways to expel him from the academy. Renji knew that from now on, he would be under intense scrutiny. The teacher then walked over to Uncle Lee, still not recognizing him, and asked Uncle Lee to make a wig and send it to his office. The teacher then dismissed the class and told Renji that he no longer needed to attend his lessons but to be careful of the teacher's tricks. Meanwhile, some people from the higher echelons had been using a telescope to observe the Hell class. They noticed that this year's Hell class seemed more interesting than usual, so they planned to cause trouble. Renji later wrote a letter to his father. He had been at the academy for 4 months and, although assigned to the Hell class, his friends were very kind. However, he was still struggling with his low grades. He asked his father to stay healthy and hoped that he would be safe in obtaining the Good Person certification and clearing the Devil Sex name. The teacher returned to class wearing his new wig. Everyone immediately noticed that he was wearing a fake wig. The teacher approached Renji and criticized him for focusing on dressing up instead of studying. He pointed out that if it weren't for the teacher, Renji wouldn't have had to wear such clothes. The teacher then announced that the Hell class would be welcoming a new student, Tang Tang. Everyone was excited to have another girl in the class. The second announcement was that the school had just passed a new rule. If a student had a score below -30 by the midterm exam, they would be expelled. Mingju blamed the teacher for creating trouble to expel Renji, but the teacher responded that he wasn't so free as to target just one student, and this was a rule set by the principal. Moreover, Tang Tang was another student at risk of being expelled, as her score was -60. The teacher then left, telling the class to study on their own. Mingju promised to help her friend improve his scores, but instead of telling Renji, she was speaking to Tang Tang. However, Tang Tang seemed to ignore her and walked away, making Mingju realize that Tang Tang might be a difficult person to deal with. Tang Tang then ran into Rhyming, who demanded that she acknowledge him as the leader of the class. However, Tang Tang quickly pulled out a tool and flicked it hard against Rhyming's forehead, leaving him stunned before dashing off. Meanwhile, the teacher was about to go look for Uncle Lee when Tang Tang suddenly approached him, asking to be assigned a point recovery task. The teacher was surprised that she even knew about this hidden mission. Right then, Renji also expressed his desire to join the task. Tang Tang argued that she had claimed the mission first and pulled out her tool again to threaten Renji. The teacher intervened, reminding them that fighting was prohibited. The teacher explained that the only point recovery task available this week was rice harvesting, which was a group activity requiring the entire class to participate. He expressed doubt that the Hell class could accomplish it. Renji encouraged Tang Tang to help rally the others, saying that their classmates were actually quite friendly. However, Tang Tang remained silent. Renji then asked her if she wanted to be friends with him. The two returned to the class, only for Cyan to suddenly exclaim in shock, accusing Tang Tang of being a member of the demon sect. Renji feared that his own secret had been exposed, but it turned out that Cyan was actually referring to Tang Tang. Renji was puzzled, as he had never heard of Tang Tang being part of any demon sect despite his upbringing in one. According to rumors, Tang Tang's sect leader had collaborated with the demon sect, but was exposed, leading to his death. As a result, people remained unsure whether Tang Tang was aligned with the righteous sects or the demonic ones. Everyone began gossiping about the demon sect, which made Renji feel hurt. He stepped forward to defend Tang Tang, asserting that she had done nothing wrong and that it was unfair to judge her based solely on rumors. He believed Mingju would understand his point better than anyone else. Mingju realized that Renji never actually confirmed Tang Tang's affiliation with the demon sect, so perhaps she wasn't a member after all. However, Tang Tang declared that she didn't need anyone's trust and walked away. She left to start the task on her own. Rhyming thought Tang Tang was looking down on the class, but Mingju revealed that the Hell class was often underestimated because they were always behind schedule compared to other classes. Tasks for earning points were also scarce for them. Cyan and Rhyming only then realized the existence of these point-earning tasks. Mingju mentioned that this information was written in the student handbook, though it seemed none of them had bothered to read it. Cyan and Rhyming quickly dragged Renji along to start the task. Renji was surprised to find that the school grounds had such a vast field of crops. The boys arrived, and the teacher supervising the task noted that all 10 members of the class were present. He explained the task. They had to harvest rice across 10 plots before sunset in order to earn points. Mingju immediately took off her shoes and socks, stepping into the muddy water. But as she felt the cold water, Rhyming jumped in enthusiastically, splashing mud all over her. Rhyming began to sink, and Mingju had to pull him out. As the day went on, little progress was made. The boys were playing with clay instead of working. Mingju worried they wouldn't be able to finish harvesting all 10 plots in time. However, when she looked over at Renji, he seemed to be diligently working. Having grown up helping his father with farm work, Renji found it manageable. He offered to teach Mingju how to harvest if she didn't know what to do. Mingju couldn't help but wonder if Renji was really a young master of a sect, given his familiarity with manual labor. Suddenly, Tang Tang approached the supervisor and handed in the rice she had harvested. She asked if she could earn extra points for completing more than the required amount. The supervisor denied her request, explaining that this was a group task points would only be awarded if the entire group finished. Hearing this, Tang Tang felt frustrated with her classmates. Renji and Mingju, meanwhile, worried about how they would finish the remaining plots in time. Tang Tang glanced at her peers, sighed in exasperation, and went back to work. She used a mysterious device to harvest rice at a much faster pace than usual. Rhyming, on the other hand, was annoyed because the rice plants were taller than he was, making it difficult for him to cut them. The others noticed Tang Tang's extraordinary efficiency, and Cyan speculated that she was trying to show them up. This motivated him to start working seriously as well. Tang Tang soon finished another plot, prompting Renji and Mingju to approach her and ask what tool she was using. Recalling how Renji had defended her earlier, Tang Tang decided to share her tool with him. With this tool in hand, Renji and Mingju started cutting rice stalks, noticing how much faster the work progressed. Rhyming called everyone back, pointing out that there were more tools available. Each classmate grabbed one, and they all began harvesting as quickly as possible. By the end of the day, the entire task was finally completed. Everyone thought they would each receive 10 points, with Cyan particularly excited, as this would allow him to leave the Hell class. However, the instructor announced that the 10 points were to be divided among all 10 participants, leaving each with only 1 point. Cyan was shocked, feeling disheartened that a full day of labor had only earned them such a meager reward. The instructor later went to submit their completed mission to receive a new assignment for them. At this moment, Saiyan approached Tang Tang to apologize for his previous words. He hoped that Tang Tang would forgive his earlier behavior and admitted that she truly was a righteous disciple. Tang Tang blushed at his words. The instructor then issued a new assignment. The class was to split into male and female teams to clean the school baths. This caused Renji to worry, as it could expose his secret. Fortunately, the task only involved cleaning and didn't require anyone to undress. While tidying up the bathhouse, Renji noticed Tang Tang using her tool again, but it malfunctioned due to incomplete adjustments. Renji and Mingju offered to help her fix it, but Tang Tang remained silent, making it difficult for them to cooperate. After some effort, the three of them managed to repair the tool. Suddenly, Xingping pulled a cord, causing a surge of water to flood the bathhouse and drench the group. Raimeng and Xingping took this opportunity to jump in and start bathing, leaving the others no choice but to sit and soak for a while. Renji, feeling uneasy, tried to leave, but his skirt got caught on Tang Tang's towel. As he attempted to sneak out, the skirt was pulled away, forcing him to remain seated. Noticing Renji's discomfort, Xingping assumed he was just exhausted from the day's work. Tang Tang brought Renji his skirt, but before he could dress, chaos erupted in the men's bath, shouting, sounds of fighting, and even the clash of a sword piercing the wall. Raimeng and Xingping rushed over to investigate, with Mingju following. Renji hesitated to leave, but was reminded by Tang Tang to take his skirt. Embarrassed, he asked her to turn around while he dressed. Suddenly, Renji accidentally caught a glimpse of something inappropriate and began choking on water. He called for Tang Tang to help, but when she leaned closer, Renji unintentionally grabbed her shirt as he tried to steady himself. In doing so, he noticed her body was covered in scars. Embarrassed, Renji returned her shirt and prepared to leave, but Tang Tang unexpectedly stopped him. For the first time, she wore an expression Renji hadn't seen before, leaving him surprised. Soon after, unfamiliar voices could be heard from the adjacent bathhouse. Tang Tang immediately ran off without explaining. In the men's bath, a nobleman named Shixing, who had been observing the Hell class for some time, was causing trouble. Shixing demanded that the boys leave the bath so he could use it, but Saiyan refused, arguing that they had just cleaned the area and wouldn't let it be dirtied again. Tang Tang appeared and pleaded with Shixing to stop, revealing that she was his servant. Shixing took out a whip to strike her, but Renji intervened to block the blow. Shixing dismissed Renji, arguing that disciplining his servant was none of Renji's concern. He then poured scalding water over Renji, provoking him to fight back. However, Mingju restrained Renji, warning that fighting would result in point deductions. The instructor arrived shortly after and demanded an explanation. Shixing was penalized, losing points for his actions. However, he shifted the blame onto Tang Tang, forcing her to accept responsibility. Tang Tang didn't resist, which only angered Renji more. Shixing smugly revealed that Tang Tang had always been his scapegoat for point deductions and told everyone else to get out so he could enjoy the bath alone. The teacher arrived and stated there was no rule forbidding students from the Hell class from using the bathhouse. While fighting was prohibited, he permitted martial arts sparring. The group, eager to teach Shixing a lesson, was momentarily disheartened when Shixing arrogantly declared he wouldn't bully the weak. Instead, he claimed the right to choose his opponent for a duel. Shixing decided to avoid Xingping and Mingju, deeming them too strong. When his eyes fell on Raimeng, her bold demeanor made him wary that she might possess some hidden technique. Finally, he settled on Renji, who appeared resigned and unwilling to resist. Coincidentally, this choice aligned with the wishes of the entire class, and even the teacher seemed to know the nobleman was about to get his comeuppance. However, Shixing revealed he wouldn't fight Renji directly. Instead, he chose Tang Tang to fight in his stead. Tang Tang stepped forward without hesitation, leaving Renji puzzled as to why she was so obedient to Shixing's commands. The teacher, not wanting Renji to win easily, declared that both participants must fight with their full strength. To further motivate them, he announced that the winner would earn points while the loser would face deductions. Renji knew that if he lost points, he would face expulsion. Determined to win, he braced himself for the battle. But there was a catch: the teacher forbade him from using external martial arts, requiring him to rely solely on internal energy. Having already exhausted the internal energy granted by the principal, Renji was left with two choices: use the demonic arts he inherited from the demon sect or lose the fight. Yet, he couldn't bring himself to harm Tang Tang. Shixing, sensing victory, promised Tang Tang a reward if she won. Encouraged by this, Tang Tang launched an aggressive attack, forcing Renji onto the defensive. Renji focused on avoiding her blows and even managed to knock away her tools. When Renji grabbed her wrist to stop her, Tang Tang told him to strike her and claim victory. Unwilling to hurt her, Renji allowed himself to be pushed back instead. Observing the situation, Renji realized that Shixing was holding something over Tang Tang, forcing her to obey. Determined to help her, Renji lunged forward again. Tang Tang, seeing an opportunity, set off a smoke bomb to obscure everyone's view. Taking advantage of the chaos, she deliberately created an opening for Renji to win. Despite this, Renji refused to land a blow on a girl whose body was covered in scars. Tang Tang, understanding Renji's hesitation, incapacitated herself to secure his victory. She believed she had something precious to protect and was willing to sacrifice herself for it. Renji was declared the winner, but the teacher hesitated to acknowledge it, claiming Renji only won because Tang Tang had fainted due to the lingering effects of the explosion. Suddenly, Shixing stood up, expressing his dissatisfaction. He pointed at Renji and accused him of being a disciple of the demon sect. The teacher demanded proof, and Shixing confidently declared he had evidence, though it was based on reasoning. He argued that Tang Tang had intentionally let Renji win, which made no sense unless they were connected. Having lived under his control for 10 years, Tang Tang shouldn't have any connections outside him. Thus, he concluded that Tang Tang and Renji belonged to the same sect and accused them both of being members of the demon sect. While Renji found Shixing's claims absurd, they were unfortunately true. However, Renji's classmates stood up for him, asserting that neither he nor Tang Tang were from the demon sect. Undeterred, Shixing produced a hairpin as evidence. Seiyin recognized it as one of 4 weapons used by the 4 heavenly kings of the demon sect. Shixing revealed that years ago, he discovered that Tang Tang's family had colluded with the demon sect. After being exposed, her family chose suicide, leaving her behind clutching this hairpin. His investigation revealed that Tang Tang's mother was a sibling of one of the 4 heavenly kings, solidifying her connection to the demon sect. The teacher stepped in, confiscating the hairpin and chastising Shixing for bringing such a dangerous item to school. He reminded everyone that the principal personally admitted each student, ensuring no member of the demon sect could infiltrate the school. The teacher warned Shixing that further false accusations would result in punishment. Furious, Shixing vowed to inform his father and exact revenge on the entire class. Though the ordeal seemed resolved, Seiyin and several other classmates began ostracizing Tang Tang, refusing to associate with someone connected to the demon sect. Mingzhu still believed Tang Tang was a good person. However, no matter how much they cared about Tang Tang, the undeniable truth of her connection to the demon sect was too significant to overlook. Their deep-seated hatred for the demon sect created an insurmountable barrier, making it impossible for them to forgive Tang Tang. Hurt by the rejection, Tang Tang ran away, leaving Renji no choice but to chase after her. Renji called Uncle Lee for help and asked if Tang Tang's parents were truly connected to the demon sect. Uncle Lee wasn't entirely sure, but he remembered that Renji's father was very close to them. Years ago, Renji's father frequently complained to Uncle Lee about how he had repeatedly invited Tang Tang's parents to join the demon sect, but they always refused. Renji's father was fascinated by their power and wanted them in the sect, but each time he visited, he ended up being beaten instead. Hearing this, Renji was overjoyed to learn that Tang Tang had no real connection to the demon sect. Mingju later came to find Renji, prompting Uncle Lee to slip away. Mingju asked if Renji had found Tang Tang, but he admitted he hadn't yet. He tried to explain, but Mingju told him that regardless of whether Tang Tang was from the demon sect, she was still a good person. Mingju insisted that she couldn't turn her back on a good person in trouble. Inspired by her resolve, Renji devised a plan and asked for Mingju's help. After explaining the details to her, they set it into motion. Disguised as an assassin, Renji infiltrated Shixing's residence and discovered Tang Tang was also there. Shixing blamed Tang Tang for causing him to become the laughingstock of the Hell class. He then produced a sketch of the demon sect's young master and handed it to Tang Tang. Shixing only knew the height and weight of the demon sect leader's son, not his face. He instructed Tang Tang to return to the Hell class and identify a boy matching the description. Once found, she was to sedate him, dress him in the specified outfit, and frame him as the demon sect's heir. This would allow Shixing to accuse the Hell class of harboring the enemy, leading to their expulsion. Tang Tang outright refused. For the first time, she openly defied him. Shixing claimed she owed everything to him, but she still regarded her classmates in the Hell class as friends. Shixing sneered, reminding her that the Hell class had already ostracized her, seeing her as a member of the demon sect. He demanded she stop rebelling and return to being his subordinate. When Tang Tang continued to resist, Shixing threw her aside and began whipping her. At that moment, Renji burst in, slamming Shixing into the wall and landing several punches. Renji declared that he was the one Shixing was looking for. Using magic, Renji restrained Shixing and dragged him deep into the forest. Tang Tang, however, followed and attacked Renji, seeking vengeance against him for the suffering the demon sect had caused her. Renji attempted to flee, but Tang Tang relentlessly pursued him. The chase led them to a combat arena, where Tang Tang hurled tools at Renji and charged at him with a sickle. Renji evaded her attacks, maintaining his distance, but Tang Tang used the ribbons on her body to manipulate the tools for ranged strikes. Renji was shocked by the depth of her hatred for the demon sect. Left with no other option, he unleashed his own power to fight back, slamming Tang Tang into a wall. Renji then launched a flare onto the highest pillar to draw others to the scene. Mingju and their classmates arrived, and Mingju declared that Renji was the demon sect disciple. She also argued that Tang Tang, fighting against the demon sect on her own, clearly did not belong to it. Renji channeled a powerful spell aimed at Tang Tang, but the headmaster intervened, shielding her. The headmaster questioned why the demon sect was causing a commotion and trying to draw attention. The disciplinary chief wanted to intervene, but the headmaster stopped him, emphasizing the student's safety. He insisted on handling the situation personally. Despite this, Renji leapt high into the air and struck the headmaster's protective barrier, breaking through to approach Tang Tang. He urged her to fight him, causing her to recognize who he truly was. Tang Tang detonated a smoke bomb, causing Renji to collapse to the ground. As others rushed forward to share in the credit for her victory, Uncle Lee suddenly appeared. Reading from a note written by Renji, Uncle Lee proclaimed Tang Tang's audacity in injuring the demon sect leader's son. He reminded her that the demon sect always repaid its debts. Uncle Lee demanded Tang Tang state her full name and sect affiliation. Immediately after, Uncle Lee swore that from now on, he and her sect would never coexist under the same sky. He then carried Renji away, thinking they had successfully escaped. However, the headmaster suddenly trapped them both under a large bell, stating that this was not a place they could enter and leave as they pleased. Uncle Lee tried to break the bell but failed, while Renji pretended to remain unconscious, unable to intervene. Renji grew increasingly anxious, fearing that this time the headmaster might truly expose his identity. The headmaster insisted they stay and talk, but Uncle Lee was determined to take his young master away for treatment. At that moment, the disciplinary chief unexpectedly rushed in to confront his sworn enemy. The teacher shattered the bell, freeing them both, for which Uncle Lee was deeply grateful. He promised to settle their grievances in the future and left with Renji. The teacher, however, stubbornly continued to pursue them. Meanwhile, Tang Tang's classmates apologized to her for previously misunderstanding her. However, they all noticed that the son of the demon sect from earlier bore a striking resemblance to Renji from their class. Raimeng pointed out that Renji was a girl, whereas the son of the demon sect was male. Still, the height and build were so similar that they couldn't help but harbor some doubts. Mingzhu then arrived to inform the class that Renji was unconscious due to a falling rock during the earlier battle, and that she needed to take him to the infirmary. The headmaster addressed the incident, explaining that it occurred because Qiang was hospitalized, leaving security lax. He assured everyone that security would be tightened moving forward. He also praised Tang Tang for single-handedly standing against the demon sect, announcing that all her previous point deductions would be nullified. Now that Tang Tang no longer had any negative points, the headmaster asked if she would like to join the advanced class. Everyone eagerly invited her to the advanced class, but Shixing still claimed that Tang Tang belonged to him. In response, Tang Tang punched him squarely in the face and then grabbed a whip, mercilessly lashing him repeatedly. She declared that she was now free and the rightful leader of her family's sect, vowing to repay kindness with kindness and settle grievances with justice. She then broke the whip and announced that any debt she owed Shixing had been fully repaid. Turning to the headmaster, she asked to be punished for hitting a fellow student. The headmaster agreed, deducting 20 points from her record, allowing her to stay in the Hell class. Everyone rejoiced that Tang Tang had chosen to remain with them. Renji, meanwhile, returned to his room with Mingzhu. He was so worried about his secret being exposed that he couldn't sleep. He confided in Mingzhu, shocking her with the truth. Suddenly, Tang Tang appeared at their door, leaving Renji feeling as if his soul had left his body. However, Tang Tang only wanted to speak privately with Renji. And with that, the episode temporarily came to an end.